This is a Full and Bloom interview with producer-engineer Jim Faraci. Inside the album, Poison, Look What the Cat Dragged In. More info at fullandbloom.com. Could we just start with how you started working with Poison?
I started working with Poison in 1984. They were actually big Rat fans and saw my name on the back of Out of the Cellar and pulled up into my parents' driveway in a blue Chevette, the whole band in one car looking for me. And they got a hold of me and they told me, I remember Brett telling me that they were the greatest band I would ever see. And I went to see them live and I really did like them. So we started working together, started working on their songs and demos and trying to get them a record deal in LA.
That's incredible. And so at that time, do they have the other guitar player or is CC in the band?
No, Matt was still in the band. Matt left the band after we finished the first set of demos. I think his girlfriend got pregnant. I don't really remember the reason. And Matt went back and CC joined the band. But that was a really important change because CC was really an instrumental part in all the songwriting. And the songs really started to take off when CC joined the band. And he brought a great energy into the band as well.
What was it like working with Matt?
It was good. Matt was a really nice guy. You know, those guys all grew up together in Pennsylvania.
Right.
They're from the same hometown as the band Kick, who I also worked with.
Right.
So, yeah, it's such a strange coincidence. But Matt was a good kid. They all lived in the same town. They went to high school together and said, hey, let's start a band. And Matt was the guitar player. And that's how it started.
And you worked on Midnight Dynamite, right?
Yes, I did.
I've talked to Bo about that. There was that ballad that was on there that I always thought, God, I can't believe that wasn't a hit. Just a massive...
Oh, Walking Away.
God damn, that was a great song.
Yeah, there were a lot of good songs. Cold Shower was one of my favorite songs on that record.
That was a great one too. But yeah, I jammed that album quite a bit, and it's not one that a lot of people know about just because Kix finally hit with a ballad, coincidentally.
Right, which was their next record. Funny now how Kix is so much more popular now than they were then.
Do you have like any memory, any kind of standout moments from any of the demo stuff you did with Matt or anything during that time?
No, nothing really stood out. They were the songs that they had been playing and had been playing live. And at the time, they were probably the most popular unsigned band in Los Angeles.
And this is like 84, huh?
84, because I think Out of the Cellar came out in 84. So this is probably late 84. And they all lived in the rehearsal room that they worked in. Once CC joined the band, they all moved into this rehearsal room. Before that, they had an apartment on Franklin that they all lived in and we used to all hang out in. And then they moved to the rehearsal room once CC came into the band. But that was very common in LA at the time. Most of the young bands lived in the rehearsal space.
So once CC came in, I mean, he's the one who brought in like Talk Dirty to Me and some of the hits, right? For the first record?
Yeah, CC was really a prolific writer. And then when he got together with Brett's lyrics, it really clicked. I mean, it really took off. He brought a really high energy to the band. It wasn't just Brett at that point. It was Brett and CC who could really play off each other at that time. And the rest of the guys were really strong, and it just worked. He just fit their persona perfectly.
When you're working with them, are you doing a deal to sell them to a label, like a development deal, or are you just doing this for free, or what?
It was a development deal. So what I would do was, at the time, I was a staff engineer at the Village. When you were an engineer at the Village, the guy who ran it at the time, Dick LaPalme, always encouraged everyone who worked there, no matter who you were, any downtime, you were welcome to bring in any bands you wanted. So I brought Poison in there numerous times to record songs and to work on stuff because I would be like, hey, I'm off Sunday. Come on down. Let's cut a few tracks while I have the studio for the day. We used to do that all the time. And what I would do, my deal was I would produce all their demos and then I would produce the record, or they would have to buy me out of the record if they got a deal. And for some reason, I wasn't involved in the record.
That's how you ended up doing Look What the Cat Dragged In?
Yeah. They came to me and I said, okay, here's the deal. They said, great. So we went into the Village and we're cutting songs left and right. In fact, I still have the multi-track tape in my garage from those sessions.
Incredible. From the Look What the Cat Dragged In, or just the demo sessions?
From the demos itself. I think the 4 songs we did all made the record, if I remember correctly.
And those are the 4 songs that ended up getting them signed?
Yeah. What happened was, once we cut the demo, as I said, they were supposed to sign with Atlantic. Atlantic had signed Rat, and they really liked Poison. And literally, the day we were supposed to sign, Atlantic changed their mind. signs and pulled out because they didn't think the band was strong enough. And it was almost, I think, the following day is when Wes Hine and Enigma came in and said, well, if Atlantic doesn't want you, we'll take you. Enigma was a little independent label at the time.
Of course.
So we signed with them just to get a deal.
Do you remember a band called Sweet Savage?
No, I don't remember them.
Okay, they were very much a glam band, all blonde hair guys, and they were from Texas, but they were big there, and then they moved to L.A. They had a demo produced by Dana Strum, which they turned into an EP that sold like 50,000 copies independently. The guitar player, I've talked to him a couple of times through the years, and he had told me a story that Enigma offered them a record deal, and then their singer was like, no way, we're not signing to Enigma. They're not big enough, so let's wait. And he said that that's when Poison got signed. But more amazing that by this point, I've heard a ton of stories on just about every band from that era, but I've never heard that they almost signed to Atlantic.
Oh, yeah, we were all ready to go. Kenny Austin, who signed Rat, Kenny loved the band, and he was ready to go, and we were already making plans on recording and dates and everything, and then at the last minute, Atlantic changed their mind, and I mean, literally the next day, Wes Hine called Brett and said, hey, I heard your Atlantic thing fell through, and he said, yep. He said, well, we'll take you, and we're ready to go, and it was literally that fast that we turned around, and they were signed to Enigma, and off we went.
Do you know anything like the terms of that deal? Like what kind of...
No.
Okay.
No, I was not privy to any of that. It was all handled by the band. No, I did not know, but I know we had a really small recording budget because I know what we spent to make the record and how long we spent making it.
So is that more like... Are you guys intentionally trying to just save money, or is that Enigma saying you've got like a $25,000 budget?
No, that was Enigma saying, you have $25,000. You're not getting a penny more. Go make your record.
Incredible.
Yeah, and that's what it was. And that was the first time I had worked for Enigma. I had never worked for them before, and I didn't know the Hine brothers, who I still talk to quite a bit. And they just called me up, and they said, well, you've been working with the band all along. I had never produced a record, and that's when CeCe was friends with Rick Browdy, said, would you mind working with him? And I said, hell, if it gets the record made, I'm fine with it. So we went in, we went to Music Grinder on Melrose Studio. We did everything in.
You might have worked with Randy Burns on that Striper record. Did you do the EP?
No, I did the record after the EP.
I got you. So Soldiers Under Command?
The title of it.
Soldiers Under Command, was it that one?
Yeah, maybe that was it. It's funny, gotta say, I really don't remember the name, Adam, of what record I did with Striper, because I did some singles with them, and then a record, and then a live record.
As far as Grinder, though, I mean, I've heard that over and over and talked to Randy Burns was one who said they had great gear, and it was always very affordable.
Yeah, that was the key. Music Grinder, you got a 24-hour day in a really good sounding room with a Trident, Series 80 console, and it was $1,000 a day. So we would go in there, we'd start at 10 in the morning and work till 2. And yeah, I mean, we cut that entire record, the entire Poison record. I think our total recording bill was $10,000.
That's incredible.
We basically cut a song a day and then went to mix it with Michael Wagner, I'm pretty sure.
Right, yeah.
The mixing of that was Michael.
Right. Did you participate in the mix? Did you hang with Michael during that period?
A little bit, but not a whole lot. Once it got to him, I would poke my head in. But at that point, I'm like, yeah, it sounds great. I mean, I had known Michael before that. So I was like, hey, fine. I don't have a big ego with that stuff. To me, I want the record to get made. I want it to get out. So whatever everybody else thinks will work is fine with me. And obviously it worked very well.
Right. Yeah, he was kind of established by then. Plus, like we were talking yesterday, that first Great White album I just adore when they were real heavy and aggressive, and he produced that and engineered that. And then, of course, I think by then he'd even mixed Master of Puppets by Metallica, which talk about a record I just wore out.
Yeah, that's how I got hooked up with Striper, is Michael was running so far behind on finishing Master of Puppets that he called me up. He said, hey, I got this band. They need to get going. Why don't you do them? Because I'm going to be here with Metallica forever.
Wow.
Yeah, we were at Amigo Studios in North Hollywood. which was the old Warner Brothers studios. And then Striper, the same thing. We went over to music. Everybody worked at Music Grinder. They had a good relationship with Enigma, and it was in a nice part of town, and the room sounded great, and we could afford it.
Yeah, some reason I think even Motley Crue, I was doing something where I was either going through a Tom Werman interview that I had done, and I looked something up, and I was like, wow, it looked like they might have even gone, like while they were huge, might have even gone over to Grinder for some tracks.
Yeah, it was a really good sounding room. You know, for me, it was weird because I couldn't cut it at the Village. We were way too busy there. So I would always have to go to Grinder was my studio of choice for many years.
I'm assuming the guys are incredibly rehearsed and been playing these same songs for a while. Was it easy to cut those songs?
Oh, yeah. We cut a song a day. Oh, yeah. I mean, start to finish. Yeah, Monday is Talk Dirty to Me. Tuesdays, I Won't Forget You. Wednesday, yeah. We very well rehearsed. We'd been rehearsing for a long time together. They knew these songs backwards and forwards. It was just a matter of getting the performances, and they had been playing them nightly for a long time, so it was really easy.
And getting the performances, even the drums, everything went smoothly?
Yeah, and actually we got the drums from the Scorpions drummer, lent us his drums.
Wow, Herman?
Yeah, Herman. Shit, I couldn't remember his name. Yes, Herman lent us drums because Rick Browdy knew them. And Ricky's drums were thrashed, and we just didn't have the budget to go rent good drums. So Herman lent through Rick. We got a set of drums from Herman that sounded great.
Randy Burns would get, there was like a drum doctor in town or something that would...
Ross Garfield, yeah.
Okay, you'd rent drums, and he'd come in and tune them and work kind of with the drummer with how they like their set. Did you do some of that?
I did a lot of that. Almost every band. You know, I did a lot of young startup bands, and their equipment was just thrashed. So you would always call Ross, the drum doctor, and you would go there, pick out the set that worked for you, and then he would come in, set it up, and then he would come in every day or so, you know, when I needed him, and he would put new heads on and tune them. Yeah, he was Ross Garfield, the drum doctor. Very, very nice guy.
When you had to do the drums, say it was a more established band, like when you did the Rat records on, say, Invasion, are you tuning the drums?
Yes, we did everything. By the time Rat got to Invasion, their drum tech, who was Huey, I don't remember Huey's last name, and Bobby would tune the drums. And by that point, Bobby had a nice Ludwig endorsement, so we had killer drums for the Rat records.
Of course, yeah. That was an amazing sounding record, by the way, Invasion.
Thank you. The second Rat record, it looked like a Guitar Center store. The amount of equipment and guitars, and it was just amazing.
Does anything stand out from the Look What the Cat Dragged In sessions?
The thing I remember the most, and this will sound weird, is that they were really fun. We had a really good time because we were all really friendly. The guys were just they were so excited to be making a record and so confident that they knew it was going to be great. Because you got to remember, everyone was telling them they were shit for years. And they got no respect in L.A. because they were glam and they weren't good players and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, fuck that. We're going to go out and do what we do. And look how popular we've gotten. Believe me, I got to tell you, Poison was the hardest working band outside of the studio and the rehearsal room that I had ever seen. I mean, they were constantly out promoting themselves and getting shows. They deserved everything they got. I mean, they worked their asses off nonstop, those guys. They were an incredibly driven band.
I think Tom Werman had said that Bobby was kind of the business brains behind it.
Yeah, Bobby's nickname of his band was Business is Bob. And Bobby was the guy who kind of kept all the business end together. Brett was the motivation and driving force. He was relentless. And CC really did a lot of the writing and was kind of the personality as well as Brett. And Ricky kind of kept everything together.
How so?
I find in every band, every guy in the band kind of has their role to fill.
That's probably the only way you can really make it work.
Yeah, it's the only way you have a fighting chance. Eventually they all dissolve, but at least you have a chance then.
I know they'd be a party band, but they don't really have any money to... I know CC had his battle with Coke or whatever he was on, but...
Right. And that came way later. When I was with them, it was really drinking. Like, as an example, when we were doing the first record, if you wanted to come to the studio and hang out, you had to bring food or booze or they wouldn't let you in. So we would have... I mean, every night would be these young girls showing up with pizzas and beer at the door of Music Grinder where they had a camera, and we could see who it was. and then they would decide whether or not to buzz them in. It's funny, we did the same thing with Guns N' Roses at Sound City. You had to bring something to get in. It wasn't free. I remember that with Poison, or they'd have to be topless for a certain amount of time, and there was all kinds of shit going on, but they were really fun. It was some great times. It's funny, it was the first time I took pictures, and I have a lot of pictures of all of us from that first session when we were doing Look What the Cat Dragged In. But we did a lot because, as I said, we had been together a long time, and we did a lot of social. We spent a lot of time just hanging out together and goofing around and writing songs and, really just trying to get them to break.
What's the next record you work? I know you said you work on the very next one a little bit. On the third one, are you working with them a lot on that one?
God, I don't remember exactly, Adam. I got to admit, I'm not 100% sure. Poison was pretty fluid. You'd work with them, and then you didn't, and then because they were always on tour, they would be like, okay, I'm home for a week. Are you available? Let's cut these tracks. Okay. All right, now we're going to be gone for 3 weeks. Oh, now we want to do this. So it was always really a fluid thing, and it was hard for me because I was working with a lot of other bands to be available. But I would always hear from Brett. He'd always call me and say, hey, what are you doing? I want to get this done. Can we run down to the studio? And a lot of times they would come in at night at the Village and do stuff. Are you noticing changes through the years, or do you notice a drug problem creeping in or anything like that? Are there any moments that you recall like that? No, there's not a specific moment. I think what changes all of the young bands is money. Money and pressure is what changes them. Now, all of a sudden, as soon as money enters the picture, it's, well, how come my songs aren't getting on the record? And why are we not splitting everything evenly anymore? Why is he getting this privilege and I'm not? And how come I'm not coming to the mixes of the record? That's the kind of stuff, when the first record, no one really cares. They just want to get it done. By the third record, all of those kind of things are really what starts to come. As far as drug and alcohol problems, those all kind of come and go. I would put it much more on pressure and money than anything else. I mean, that to me is where you really notice the personality changes and the way it affected people, and fame, how it affects you. Bo talks about that quite a bit just in the Rat Camp once publishing became obvious. It's difficult. When you're young, it's all for one, one for all. And then record number two, like with Rat, it became, well, I'm the one staying at home writing all the songs. You guys are the ones out partying and having this great time. Why am I splitting the money with you? I'm doing all the work. And it was the same thing with Poison. It's with all of them. And I understand. That's a very difficult question to answer. Right, except Poison seemed to always, on the back of their album covers, they did kind of that Van Halen thing where they just listed that everybody wrote the songs. So I don't know. Yeah, they listed it that way, but the reality was quite a bit different. They did for quite a while, and I know at one point that ended, and that's when things really went south. But it was already starting before that. With any band, they all have big egos. That's why they get so popular. So difficult to keep them together and to be able to share the space. That's really the issue. What was it like working with Rick on that album? It was okay. Rick was not, he came in late, and he was involved, but he wasn't deeply involved. Let me put it that way. He was there. He helped out, and he got us the drums, which is really cool. He had some stuff, but he wasn't into it nearly. I had been with the band for at least a year by that point. So it was a different relationship, but we didn't have any problem with it. And so you feel like you pretty much produced that album? Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so what would be your role as a producer? What kind of calls? I mean, obviously you're engineering it as well, which I thought is always got to be the case typically. How do you totally produce without also engineering? But if you were to separate the two, what are you making calls on a producer side? On the producer side, you're making creative decisions. You're saying, okay, that vocal's great. Let's go with this. That solo is what we need here. You're helping formulate the songs, writing the songs, arranging the songs. As an engineer, your job really starts at the very end of rehearsal. And you're establishing what kind of drum tone are we looking for, what kind of guitar tone. It's more of a technical job than creative, where I would put production in way more of the creative side of the job, and handling the finances, which is a big deal when you're making a record, especially with the ones I made that the budgets were tight. Did you get points on that record? Yes, I did.
Nice.
Yeah.
It took like several months before it blew up.
Yes. It took a while because they were so it didn't in Los Angeles. In LA, it hit and it was really moving. But it was a different kind of record, and it took them a while. And again, they sold that record on touring. Poison played like Rat did nonstop. I mean, those guys worked. I mean, they were really, really hardworking bands. I think Rat, the first year, in 365 days, played like 300 shows. It was something insane, once Out of the Cellar came out.
Do you recall anything about like how you recorded Ricky's drums? Did you always kind of have your standard way of putting a 57 on a snare or 421s on toms?
Kind of. Like I remember, with Ricky, I don't specifically remember. But I remember I always used a 57 on the snare, D12 on the kick. Generally speaking, toms were varied depending on, what mics were available or, what room we were in. But I did something different than a lot of people. I did my drums backwards. I started with the room mics and worked my way down because I really liked the sound of the room when I was cutting drums. I didn't start with, start by hitting the kick drum. Let's get the kick drum sound. I would have him play the kit, and I would tweak the room mics and the overheads first, and then dial in everything else.
Okay.
Which is I picked up from, God, I don't remember his name at the Village. He was a great engineer, and he did it that way. God, what was his name? Joe. I don't remember Joe's last name, but he cut some beautiful sounding records, and he did it that way. And I went,
Wow.
And what's the use of being in a great room if you don't use the mics?
Right, but that still would go down to, say, Michael Wagner on the mix if he used the room mics at all, because a lot of times they don't use the room mics, right?
I think it depends. I always did, and everyone I worked with always did, because I like the way they sound. I want to hear the room. So, yeah, we were pretty, like on the Rat records, we weren't as much into the room mics on the first record. But as the records progressed, we got more and more into it. As Bobby went for a more organic sound, we started to incorporate more and more of that.
Bo wasn't sure, but I read it in one of the books, maybe Steven's book, or probably more than likely Bobby's book, where Bobby would, it said, maybe it wasn't on the first album, but later, he would just cut the drums by himself. Do you recall anything about that?
Yeah, the Rat records were always cut individually.
He would just memorize the song, and then he said he wouldn't
play it to the click. That's
incredible, man. I don't know if
or he would play like with just Warren playing, so he could really focus. And at the time, that was kind of common. There were more and more bands were doing that. I know on a lot of the Poison tracks, we cut them that way too. Ricky would just play along with Bobby and Cece.
That's how you cut Look What the Cat Dragged In? You would just basically as a trio?
Definitely.
To get the drums?
And then we went back and fixed the bass and then the drum. I'm sorry. And then the guitars.
Guitar.
And we put... Well, once I had the basics done, then we would start adding the vocals and the solos. But we would always cut the drums first. On tons of records, we did it that way. I know we did the Kicks record that way for sure.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, not necessarily that, I guess, playing with others, but to me, it was definitely incredible if you just play the song by yourself.
Yeah, but Bobby would play to the click track. Bobby Blotzer's a really, really good drummer.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I've always loved his drumming. I've always thought he added a lot to Rat and their vibe.
Oh, yeah,
and
he
sound.
added a lot to that band.
Yeah.
And he could play his ass off, and he'd just go in there by himself and kill the stuff. I mean, Bobby would cut 2-3 songs a day with his eyes closed.
That's incredible, man.
Yeah, Bobby, and sometimes Juan would play with him or Warren, just in case he the arrangement was really new. But that's how we would do that. We didn't do like with Bobby, we didn't do a whole lot of editing at all on his drum tracks.
Are you doing much editing on Look What the Cat Dragged In?
We did, but we did it for different reasons, more for sounds or on a different day. But I wouldn't say like we did a lot, like we weren't cutting in, okay, first verse and then first chorus. Maybe we take the first half of take one and the back half of take two. It wasn't anything extravagant. It wasn't like, I remember I walked in on one band and they literally had, it looked like wallpaper on the wall of all the drum parts. It was crazy. As
far as bass, are you going direct or are you micing an amp or combination?
Combination. A direct box and then the amps might. Yeah, we used to use it. It would really depend on the rig. They were using more of an Ampeg sound if you're getting that really strong woofer, or if it was the Guild Hartke, which had a sharper, much sharper tone to it. It would kind of depend on what the rig was as well.
And are those guys on Look What the Cat Dragged In? Are they using BC Rich's?
Let me think. I don't remember what Bobby's bass was, but CC's guitar was the dice. Was the one with the dice for the control knob. So there may have been a couple of BC Riches, but I don't 100% remember. I don't think he had his endorsement yet.
He just used one guitar through the whole album?
Maybe one, maybe two, but not more than that. It was pretty rare. I mean, these bands were young, so they would have one, maybe two guitars, and that was it. I remember, on Out of the Cellar, they didn't have an acoustic guitar. We had to use mine.
Yeah, Bo had talked about how they were so broke that they had to redo the budget. They were like, we had to buy them some gear because they had just complete crap for gear. So.
Yeah, in fact, there was a band called Heaven, and we borrowed a whole bunch of their guitar amps.
For that album?
Yeah, for Out of the Cellar. A whole bunch of them we used. It was a combination of their stuff and some of Heaven's stuff and, whatever we could find to piece together because no one had any money for anything.
And with Brett's vocals on that album, are you doing... Now, Bo had a system where he kind of would cut the guy 3 or 4 times, have him sing it through, and then he'd comp the vocal. And did you have a system with how you like to cut vocals, or do you remember how you cut Brett's vocals for that album?
Yeah, I did them the same way Bo did. I cut 3 to 4 passes, and then the next morning I would come in early and build my vocal comp. And then I would sit down with Brett and we'd listen to it, and he would decide, what he liked and didn't like, or if he was happy with it. And then anything he wasn't happy with, we'd repair, and then we'd move on. It was the first Poison record was really quick and down and dirty, but it came out really good.
It sounds fantastic. And really, it captured, if anything, it captured that vibe. I always think that first album often by those bands captured some of the essence of the streets of L.A.
I agree, absolutely. It's because they didn't have any time to think it through or the money. We had 6 days in that studio to cut the record. That was it. We really spent all of our time rehearsing the shit out of those songs. So by the time we hit the studio, it's just a matter of getting the performance.
What do you mean you had 6 days? I thought you did a song per day, so there would have been at least 10 days, right?
I think it was 10. I thought we cut the record in 6 because I thought 10 also included mixing.
So at some point you had to double up.
I don't remember exactly.
Okay.
But I know that I know it was less than 2 weeks for sure for the entire record to be done. LA Guns, we did the same thing. All those young bands, we did the entire LA Guns first record including mixing in, I think, 25 days, maybe 24, something like that. TSOL, we did their whole first record, including the mixing. I know this one was 7 days total. Mixed, done, out the door because they were out of money.
And that's another Enigma one, right? Weren't they on Enigma?
Yeah, I did a lot of work for Enigma.
I was going to say, yeah. It seems like...
Yeah, I did a lot for them.
Yeah, because Stryper was on them.
Stryper, TSOL, Agent Orange, Poison, Lizzie Borden. God, it's funny, I don't remember all of them.
Oh, I was a Lizzie Borden fan, too. I dug Lizzie Borden stuff.
Menace to Society was my record with them.
Which is about his biggest one, wasn't it?
Yes, that was it. We had a good time making that record. That was fun. That was another Music Grinder record.
But what about Stryper? Was that like a super low budget as well?
Not super low, because they already had some success at that point, but it certainly wasn't high. It was still in the independent realm. I mean, a high budget for Enigma was $30,000 or $40,000.
Right.
If you were the number one band, you got 40.
Almost like thrash band budgets. It seems like everybody I talk to with thrash bands, except for maybe some of the big ones, but I mean, Megadeth's Peace Sells was like a $25,000 record.
Yeah, $25,000 was the standard independent deal for a big independent band. You know, a band they really believed in. You got $25,000. Because I know with TSOL we got 15 because they weren't so sold on those guys.
So anything else kind of stand out from the Poison sessions?
No, the ones I really remember is we just had a really good time. The record went really smooth, and we all believed it was going to do very well. We all did. I mean, when we were cutting it, this record's going to happen. The songs are just so good and so catchy, and we're not overthinking it. We're doing what they do. It's just have a good time, kick this record out. It wasn't crazy You know, we weren't bringing in all these other parts, or it basically was their live show.
Did you think Talk Dirty to Me was going to be as big as it was?
Yeah, I did. That was my favorite song. Yeah. I thought Talk Dirty to Me was going to be a huge hit. I know when they played it live in L.A., it was just, the place would erupt when they played that song. In their heyday, Poison could do 2 sold-out nights at the country club as a band without a deal, which was a very big deal to be able to do that. That's why everybody was shocked they didn't wind up on a major label, because Capitol was sniffing around. Atlantic, we thought we were there, and then everything fell through.
Which Enigma was a subsidiary of Capitol, wasn't it?
At the time, it was not. It was a true independent. That was much later when Capitol bought up Enigma.
I gotcha.
Yeah, they were truly, it was the Hine brothers.
They released Cry Tough first, which didn't really do anything, I think.
Cry Tough was a pre-CC song. Talk Dirty to Me was a CC song. There was a definite difference once he joined the band in the songwriting. I mean, it's really what I remember. And I remember them, you know, after we were done, just looking at each other going, everyone was really happy with the record, and everybody really believed in it. And Enigma loved it. They loved the record when we delivered it.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, they were very, very happy with it. And their live show was so good. That's when they started, you know, it started to build, as all those bands did. That was the MO. You hurry up, you got your first record done, and you latched onto a big tour as the opening act, playing that half-an-hour set at 7:30.
Are they drinking during the sessions, or are they kind of very professional and...
Total professional.
And just doing that after?
Yeah, after we were done is when everybody showed up every night. Then the fun began. The work day with those guys was the work day.
Because you had the same schedule as Bo did, because I know he always would talk about how the Rat guys hated it that he wanted him there at 10 in the morning.
Oh, yeah, I was the same way. I like to get in there and get going, and I would get all my stuff done early, and then the band would show up, and we'd work till about 10 o'clock at night every night. I worked very much the same schedule as Bo did, because I worked for Bo for so long.
Was he good to work with?
Bo was really, really good to me. We got along very well. I enjoyed working with him a lot. Some of the bands didn't, but, you know, that was kind of his job as the producer. You know, you got to make decisions sometimes people don't like.
Yeah,
if you let the bands make all the decisions, you'll never get the record done.
Mainly with Rad, it was a lot of the... Because they always wanted a different producer, and he was forced to follow them.
Yeah, they didn't want Bo from the... Well, it depended on who you spoke to, who didn't want him. But, I mean, the results were there, and I think a lot of the reason is, you know, Bo wasn't a metal guy. He wasn't a heavy guy. He didn't like to go hang out. He didn't like to do any of that stuff. Bo liked to show up, make the record, and go home. And that's where I filled in so nicely, because I was more than happy to go out all night with the band. I mean, I was really young at the time. So it worked out very well for us.
Would you party with the Poison guys and the Rat guys as well?
Oh, God, yeah, big time. We were all in L.A. together, sure. We had many a fun evening with all those guys.
With Brett, do you recall what kind of mic you used on Look What the Cat Dragged In for his voice?
Look What the Cat Dragged In, I would bet would have been the Tube 47, the U47 tube. Oh, nice. That was my favorite vocal mic.
Nice, yeah, those were beautiful. And then
the village has a very large collection of vintage microphones.
And you would have been able to take that over to Grindr?
Yeah, I would be able to take them.
And then you probably used...
I had been at the village for like 5 or 6 years by then.
And then you probably used the pre's on the Trident?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't use, you know, at that time you didn't use... Outboard preamps weren't really a thing yet.
Right.
Because, like, the Village was all Neves, and they sounded beautiful, and the Trident was a great sounding board.
If you were to compare before they made it to after they made it, what's the biggest difference you noticed with Poison?
Well, the biggest difference I always said was when Poison, you know, before they broke, had really pretty girls around them. Pretty girls, you know, club girls you'd see around. Once they got popular, they move up to the models and the actresses and people you recognize, and holy shit, look who's coming down here tonight. That was the big jump. And they just really liked to have a good time, but they weren't big drinkers at all. They weren't big drug guys at all. I mean, they were just out to have fun.
The Poison guys weren't big drinkers?
No, they were not huge drinkers. Not like, you know, guys who could put down cases of beer and bottles of Jack Daniels. Wow. They weren't in the Van Halen, Motley Crue category at all. No, they were not huge drinkers.
Because they kind of projected that image.
Yes, it's because they could go out and have a great time And you would think they had been out all, for days, but they had. It was different. I mean, those guys came from a tough background and really worked really, really hard to get to where they were. And always kind of, that band always kind of kept their eye on the ball until later in their career when everything started just to unravel. But they all unraveled at that point. They just do. We always used to talk about, well, if you get 3 records out of a band, you're doing better than most.
So Look What the Cat Dragged In kind of got panned after its release.
Everybody shit on it. Everybody.
Right.
Nobody. We got the worst reviews. People laughed. I remember when the record came out, my phone rang off the hook of how I could be associated with that. How could you put your name on that record? Look at these guys. I remember they were called Chicks with Dits. All of that. I'm like, you guys are missing the point. Listen to the songs. You're missing the point.
Did you ever have any embarrassment after getting all the flack?
Oh, God, no. I believed in that record from moment one. The minute we finished it, I knew it was just a matter of time. Because you just know. Certain things you just know. You just feel it. You would see them live, Adam, and they were fantastic live. Yeah, they were just fantastic. There's no way this band isn't going to hit. Every girl in this place is swooning over these guys. And they write nice, hooky, catchy, simple songs that people love.
And each member in Poison also stood on their own. A lot of times there'd be like 2 or 3 cool dudes in a band or something. Poison kind of was one of those, like a Motley Crue or really Rat even, where everybody kind of stood out.
Everybody held their own. Well, the other thing, too, with Poison, they were all really good people. They're just good guys. They still are today. I mean, they're just good guys. They're fun. They're cool. It's I never say, oh, my God, there's CeCe DeVille. Oh, I hope he doesn't see me.
No, they seem that. Really, Brett seems like an amazing person, just some of the stuff he's done over the years. And I've heard that where he'll call people, keep in touch. And he's done a lot of good things for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah, he does. He does a lot of charitable work. Brett's just a good person. They all are. They're just good people. I mean, Ricky, I see Ricky a lot because he lives right by me. It's funny. Now we talk about our kids and all that kind of stuff. I think that really helped them because they were all personable and great interviews. I mean, they were the whole package, and they still are.
Did CeCe ever have a family? Does he have kids?
No, I don't think CeCe ever got married.
And Bobby?
I don't think he has.
Bobby got married. Does he have kids?
Yeah, Bobby has a son, Zach.
Okay.
And Ricky's daughter, God, I can't remember Ricky's daughter's name. Is that funny now that I'm sitting here? It's funny. Ricky and I go to the same racket club right by my house. I see him there too.
What do you mean racket club?
It's a swim. My kids are on the swim team there, so I've seen them walking around there. They do tennis and swim. It's like it's a gym. It's kind of the whole thing, but they specialize in tennis and swimming, and both my kids are competitive swimmers.
Wow, kids still play tennis?
Yeah, there they do. Like I said, my kids were both competitive. Well, my daughter still is. She's in high school still. And she's still a competitive swimmer. She's on the swim team in high school. So, yeah, I run into Ricky. So it's pretty funny.
Does Bobby live there? I thought he lived in Florida.
Bobby Dahl lives in Florida, yeah. And he's got a beautiful house right on the Intercoastal.
Oh, I gotcha. And, and then they were going to do the big, until all this crap came up, there was the whole giant tour with Motley Crue.
Def Leppard. It's funny because I've become a bit of a homebody in my later life, and that was the one show I said, because I had worked with Def Leppard too. I'm like, I'm going to go. I have 2 bands on the bill. I'm actually going to go to those shows. My wife couldn't believe it when I said, let's go. And then this shit happens, and there's no show. Cool when you think Poison had to get a ride to the studio with girls they knew because they couldn't even afford to get there. And,
right.
A year later, we're selling 3-4 million records. It's crazy.